What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today, I'm going to be talking about a certain behavioral pattern that I've been noticing from white people online, specifically from Twitter. And when I see this behavior from them, right, and this really applies to white people in general, but today I'm really going to be focusing particularly on white Europeans. Because look, white Americans, white Canadians, whites, Australians, white people in diaspora globally make these same arguments, have the same gaslighting, but for the purpose of the video, I'm really going to focus more on white European because that's who I see most of the arguments coming from, right? But a common behavior I do see from white people online, specifically white Europeans, right, is they'll post some picture of, a town, a city, and show how, hey, a couple of decades ago, this town was majority white, and now it's majority non-white. Hey, look at this team. Right, let's just do that over, right? And of course, on the bottom, it'd be like, we're being replaced. So when I would typically see these posts, right, obviously I'll go in the chat and I'll explain. I was like, okay, fine, but are you going to acknowledge why that's happening? Because look, obviously you'll have white folks out say this, make these posts in regards to America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Europe, right? But I think for a lot of them, it's much more of an issue when it comes to Europe because from their point of view, Europe is supposed to be the mother continent. Right, so if they see quote unquote whites being replaced in America, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, that's one thing. But they're seeing Europe as a living there, right? But when they make these posts, I would say, okay, fine, I understand your concern, but once again, are you going to explain why this is happening, right? And of course, they want to just gaslight. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to address these claims of great replacement. I'm going to address white people's concerns and really give them, I think, a better explanation as to why what's happening is happening, right? Because what I'm tired of is white people online, white people, I would say even in the mainstream, right, media, right, who will complain about migration, complain about lower birth rates, complain about all these folks coming through, complain about all these things, replacement, but never want to talk about why it's happening. Let me just start by saying this, okay? Let's start off, for example, with Europeans. Let's make our way around. When it comes to white Europeans, you guys are the last, and I mean the last, to be complaining about quote-unquote being displaced, considering your history, right? Right here, I have a picture on the screen, right, of the Berlin Conference, right? And the Berlin Conference was essentially a meeting of European powers that would decide how are we going to split up the African continent and invade it and take up their territories, right? Now, Africans didn't have a choice. They didn't decide what was going to happen. No, you guys decided, hey, we're going to go and take the territory, and you went and did that, right? Notice how when Europeans were doing this, it wasn't a problem, right? When it comes to, for example, South Africa, when whites went there and pushed native black South Africans out of the territory and set up a white settler state, it wasn't a problem then. Same thing when it came to Rhodesia. When whites went over to the Americas, right, wiped out Native Americans and set up, white settler states, especially North America, where they, pushed out the native population. It wasn't a problem there. When whites went to Australia and New Zealand, did the same thing, pushed out the natives and set up white settler states. It wasn't a problem then. And whenever we talk about, hey, you guys went out here, colonized, raped, pillaged, killed, right? What do we typically hear from white people? Well, that's just how history is. People who can survive go extinct. Y'all need to stop all this complaining and stop being woke and get over the past. Like, that's what we hear. Like, in other words, the arguments they make is might makes right, which is fine. So if might makes right, and Europeans were justified to doing whatever they did in regards to slavery, in regards to colonization, in regards to, invading the globe, right? Wiping out native populations across the globe, what is North America, Australia, New Zealand, right? If they have their right to do this, then that means by default, everybody else has the same right to do it to Europeans. So if folks want to migrate to Europe, if y'all are being pushed out, if all of a sudden you feel like you're losing native territory. Now, it's funny how Europeans are complaining about how they feel like as native Europeans are being replaced when they literally pushed out native people, indigenous people across the globe. Hell, they're literally now supporting Israel, pushing native Palestinians literally into extinction. They have no problem erasing. They have no problem when they're erasing native people of their territory. But then, when quote unquote, when indigenous whites get pushed out as a problem. And here's what kills me, right? What they are calling quote unquote replacement genocide, that's not even what that is. What's essentially happening to Europeans that they are dealing with the consequences of their own actions. You guys went around the world, pillaged, plundered, raped, extracted resources. People don't understand the living standards and the wealth that exists within Europe is predicated on the sorry, y'all. The living standards and the wealth that exists within Europe is predicated on them going around the world and colonizing, enslaving, and extracting resources from everybody else. But see, when the people who you colonize, who you enslave, who you stole resources from, when they decide to go to Europe, it's a problem. But once again, they wouldn't be migrating to Europe if you didn't steal the resources. They wouldn't be migrating to Europe if you didn't destroy the homelands. They wouldn't be migrating to Europe if you didn't colonize the lands. See, it's not a problem when you guys are doing all of these atrocities to gain resources, but it's a problem when the consequences come. It's a problem when all these migrants, all these folks follow you to Europe. And you have the audacity to call that replacement. Now, look, let's be honest here. Okay, if things keep going the way they're going, and if the white birth rates keep growing down, yeah, there's a good chance y'all could be replaced, right? But here's the issue. It's not the same thing compared to what y'all did over around the world. What you guys did is you guys went essentially to all across the world and forcibly genocided populations. What's happening here is that all of the people in which you've robbed and you've raped and you've pillaged are essentially coming to where you are. That's what's happening, right? It's literally a consequence of your own action. And to make it even worse, right, this is really happening because of the business and the state's interests of Europe, right? When it comes to the business class in Europe, right? Because of the dropping population in Europe, right? The business class in Europe, they essentially need a robust population because why? They need to have cheap labor and need to have a strong consumer force, right? And then when it comes to the state also needs a robust population. Why? Because they need to have a strong tax base, right? A robust workforce, and also to have people to enroll in the military. Right? So that's, one of the reasons why, the quote-unquote open door allowing these migrants to. But another reason why these migrants are going to Europe, because once again, these are the people in which you pillaged, robbed, and colonized. You guys bombed the Middle East. You guys staged coups across the world. You guys colonized Africa. And you have the audacity to complain when all these folks are going towards Europe? Shut the fuck up. All you're simply doing is dealing with the consequences of your own actions. And to make it even worse is that you guys essentially did worse around the world. You guys went and literally genocided people. And you have told the rest of the world that, hey, might makes right, get over the past, right? Because we had the capabilities to do it, therefore we did it. That's the argument you made, but now all of a sudden you guys want to throw a more. I'm like, dude, do you know, I am so fucking mad when I see random white Europeans say, why is it that it's only white people who don't have the right to have their own white homelands? If you guys loved Europe so much, why didn't y'all stay there? You don't get to go around the world, wipe out millions of people, set up settler states, and then complain about quote-unquote migrants or folks displacing you. You don't get to go around the world, colonize the globe, bomb places, destabilize governments, and complain about migrants coming towards Europe. We're not doing that. And I'm tired of this conversation. And this goes back to the title of the video, because all of this really comes back to is how Europeans will go out here and say Europe is for Europeans. But here's the issue. I agree with you that Native Europeans have every right to say that this continent is for us. But the issue is that you guys have essentially forfeited this right. Because you guys did not have the same mentality when it came to Native people in North America. Did Native Americans say that, hey, this is only for us, not for white settlers? Even when it comes to South Africa, I'm going to give an example. If black South Africans say that, hey, we want white South Africans to go back to Europe, South Africa is only for black South Africans, it is, right? Would Europeans support this? Of course not, right? It's a hypocrisy. When other indigenous people say, hey, our indigenous land is for us, you guys will come through and say, well, that doesn't really matter. You got to accept the white settler, right? Black Zimbabweans, you guys have to accept the white settler in Zimbabwe. See, other indigenous people don't have the right to say, hey, Zimbabwe is only for indigenous Zimbabweans. South Africa is only for indigenous South Africans. North America is only for indigenous, right? The moment they say that, white will lose their mind. So other indigenous people don't have the right to say that, hey, their indigenous land is only for them and not for white settlers. But you guys want to come to me about Europe for Europeans? If you can't recognize the rights of other indigenous people, don't cry out about the rights of indigenous Europeans. Don't do that. If other people gotta tolerate white settlers in their territory, don't they complain when migrants are coming to Europe? You gotta tolerate it. That's what I'm getting fucking tired of. But that's a European aspect, right? When you then look across the globe, for example, to North America, United States, Australia, New Zealand, and when you look across the globe, right, to United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, white people there also complain too. Oh my God, we're being replaced. But once again, it's the same situation, okay? When you guys were going around the world, pillaging, robbing, colonizing, staging, especially the United States. America's bombed the hell out of the Middle East. America essentially has destabilized South America for years. And so with you guys going around here, doing whatever you can to maintain power, whether it's destabilizing the globe, bombing places, for you guys to complain about migrants coming towards these white settler states, it's crazy to me. And here's what kills me, right? These are the same people who are essentially say, hey, the fact that we wiped out indigenous people doesn't matter because, hey, that's how the world is. If I talk to a white American, a white Canadian, a white Australian, a white New Zealander, right? And I say, hey, you guys essentially wiped out Native people to be in the territory. They'll say, well, that's how the world is. Okay, you gotta stop being woke. They'll say this. So let me get this straight. You guys have every right to wipe out the native populations where you guys are at in order to establish the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But then when other people are moving into your territories and displacing you, now it's a problem? And the worst part is that a lot of the times, these people moving to where you are is because of your actions, right? Because you destabilized and fucked over their homelands. That's what I'm getting tired of. And so, here's what I'm going to go ahead and say before I close the video, right? I don't want to hear any more white people, especially Europeans, coming around here talking about how they're being replaced, coming around here talking about how Europe is for you. I don't want to hear that. Because when you guys were going around wiping out indigenous people, setting up white settler states, right? Setting up white settlers in Africa across the world, bombing places, colonizing places, facilitating situation, doing all these things. The argument was, well, you know what? We have the power to do so we're gonna do it, right? Might makes right. You're not gonna get to do all of that and then come back in 2024 and complain about Europe is for Europeans, complain about we're being replaced, complain about anti-white racism, complain about they're out here hating white people. I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm tired of it. But with that being said, yo, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. You guys, some of the chat, what you guys agree. Tell me what you guys think, but at the end of the day, I'm tired of that shit. Okay. Don't talk to me about how Europe is for Europeans. Don't talk to me about how white people have been. Or don't talk to me about anti. Don't talk to me about all these white grievance claims. I'm tired of that shit. Because when the conversation was about your ancestors and what you guys did, what you guys told us was might makes right. And that's how the world is. Get over it. So guess what? I need y'all to shut the fuck up. Stop complaining. Stop all these white grievances. Stop talking about Europeans or Europeans. Deal with the consequences and get over it. Stop it. With that being said, yo, get fucking over it and stop it. But with that being said, yo, I'm gonna end it here. Tell me what you guys think in the chat. Like, share, subscribe, hammer out.